internet governance, program, and this is very important, really, to be able to, extend the knowledge about internet governance virtually now during the COVID, where we're not able really to meet in person. So my name is Mohammed Elbashir, and I'm currently working with ICANN as Universal Acceptance Program Manager, leading the Universal Acceptance Program, and I will talk about that in the slides, and I will explain it to you. I have been involved in internet governance and internet infrastructure area for about the last 15 years, starting with CCTLD operations and management. I was CCTLD for Sudan and later Qatar, and I was involved in the domain names policy development within ICANN. I did also establish the Internet Society chapter in Sudan back home, and I was also active within the Internet Society chapters, let's say, area and activities. I'm really glad to be here with you, and hopefully this session will be useful and will give you more knowledge about the universal acceptance and the multilingual internet at the domain name systems level. So without further ado, I can proceed to the slides. So today we're going to talk about universal acceptance of domain names and email addresses, and why it is important for a true multilingual internet. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
That's great. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think it's the important parts of the presentation will be providing you with a definition about universal acceptance and why it's important, and also a background about the domain name system and the multilingual aspect of the domain name system, and technical details about universal acceptance and email address internationalization, or email addresses in different languages, as we call it, EAI. There's also, I'm going to provide update about the community effort to advance and promote universal acceptance through the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, and how you can get involved in that work and promote it. So this presentation is for an audience that doesn't have a background about the topic. So we'll go through introduction and details about the issue, and so I can give you a background and you have an understanding about universal acceptance and scope, and also technical details about it as well, and real world scenarios about how it could be implemented and where it has been implemented. So let's start with the definition. What is universal acceptance? We all use a domain name system, or DNS, to access the internet. So either, we use it to access social media websites when we go to Facebook or Twitter or other websites for social media. We use it when we go to our bank's website, when we go to our university's websites, or even now when you have to go to the learning platform for this for the virtual internet governance school. We use it for emails as well. So the domain name system is an integral part, an important part of our way of accessing the internet, and it has changed dramatically during the last decade or so. We are now starting from a legacy, about 20-something or handful top-level domains active operational at the internet root, to nearly about 1,300 or 1,300 active generic top-level domain at the internet root. And over the year, the domain name has changed from the English ASCII characters domain names we used to have to more multilingual and multi-script domain names. So now we have domain names in different languages. We have it in Cyrillic, we have it in Chinese, we have it in Arabic, we have it in Hindi and different Indian languages. And we have domain names now. It differs in terms of its character length. We have short domain names like .sky, for example. Usually the CCTLDs, the country code top level domain names, it consists of 2 letters historically, because they are coming from an ISO list that represent that have a representation of countries and geographic regions in 2 letters. So UK is for United Kingdom and US for United States, ZA for South Africa, SD for Sudan, and so forth, and going on. But now we have even domain names that are much longer in terms of characters. We have engineering, for example, .photography, and we have cities.
State capital, state of Telangana, and
Someone have a mic. Okay, sure. Thank you. I can continue now. So and we have cities that have now top level domains like .london. So we have a huge diversity in terms of available domain names that someone could choose from and register and activate. So there's about more than 1,300 active top level domain names in the internet route now you can choose from. Okay. So with this diversity in terms of availability of domain names, and either in terms of character length or multilingual domain names available currently we can choose from, an issue has actually been raised about the accessibility and use of those domain names. And this issue we call universal acceptance. So the basic principle of universal acceptance that we want all domain names and email addresses to be treated equally when using those email addresses and domain names in the internet, either in internet systems or email services or social media. So if you registered, for example, a Hindi domain name, you should be able to use it to access the internet without any problems. Going to social media, you should be able to use email addresses associated with that as well. So the main purpose of universal acceptance that's ensuring that all registered active domain names and email addresses are treated equally. And unfortunately, for legacy reasons, that's not the case, because the software and developers community, software companies and developers community have, for a long time, they have used Latin characters and ASCII character sets, and they're not familiar with the different multilingual and different languages scripts. So they didn't code, they did code software and systems based on ASCII Latin characters only. So for example, when you go to a social media platform and you post a Hindi domain name, if that's the domain name, it doesn't link, there's no linkification basically. So that means that platform does not recognize that Hindi domain name as a valid domain name. And this is where the issue comes along here. So we wanted to, universal acceptance is important because that means it supports a diverse multilingual internet, and that's what we wanted. Every one of us want everyone to use the internet in their own language and access information in their own language. And it also enables a more, greater competitive and innovation and customer choice, because when people have the chance to use access the internet in their own scripts and languages, they will be able to innovate in terms of creating websites or content online, or the use of the use of their internet experience as well will be enhanced. Have a great business opportunity as well, because companies will be able to reach out to a wider audience in the developing world who speak different languages. It offers career opportunity for developers and system admins who are able to code or able to ensure that their systems are multilingual. And it also assists governments and policymakers in terms of ensuring their citizens have access to information in their own language, using email addresses and domain names in their own languages without the need to use the Latin character. And
did we lose you, Mohammed?
I think for a second.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. You're
yes,
back.
and I'm back. Yes. And so universal acceptance is important because it's an important pillar for supporting a multilingual internet. And I'm sure all of you promote internet access as a form of a right or human right. Some people define it as a human right, the right of people to access the information on the internet freely without any really barriers. And one of those barriers could be the language. Universal acceptance, it's enable everyone to use and access the internet in their own languages. And we know that although the English is almost I mean, content online, I think there's some statistics referred to the reference. I mean, the number, I think 70 something of content online, I guess, in English, but it's in terms of users, and less than 25%, I guess, of the internet users are, I mean, originally they speak English. So basically, we have a huge imbalance here, and the next billions of internet users will be coming from countries that doesn't use English as Latin characters as a main language and script. So Arabic, Chinese, Cyrillic, Devanagari, and other scripts are widely used in different parts of the world. So it's important for us to support the multilingual internet by ensuring universal acceptance is supported. Yes, and it have economical and societal benefits as well, because basically it's increased the ability of users to access the internet. And I will give you an example. For example, if a farmer in a village in rural India, for example, speaking Hindi, he or she not able to speak English, for example, or English is not there, definitely there. It's known to them, and we want them to access the internet. So the first barrier that they will encounter is their lack of ability to write English or write Latin characters and access websites, even Indian websites or Hindi websites. So basically, if they wanted to go to the local government website, they have to start typing the URL in Latin, in English, for example, whatever it's www or whatever domain.in in India. So that's the barrier. That's the first barrier that they face when they are accessing the internet. But if their local government have a website in Hindi or in different Indian languages or scripts, and basically the information there is also is in Hindi or different Indian languages and scripts, we are eliminating that barrier because they don't have really to access the internet using a different language or script to access their domain name. So that's a very empowering ability in terms of if we're able to give them that, to remove that barrier. And there was an OECD report in 2016 that's outlined the benefits of including different languages and also ensuring that multilingual content is available online in terms of economic and social empowerment to new internet users. So there is clear research and evidence about the importance of the multilingual internet. So in terms of choice and computer choice and innovation, we were limited to the use of legacy domain name, top-level generic domain names that were limited. But now we have new generic top-level domain that either they could be representing cities like Barcelona or representing generic terms like the blog for people who wanted to have blogs and there's insurance for insurance companies and more. So there's a huge number of variation and options for internet users to use and select in terms of choosing domain names for their businesses and different uses of domain names in daily life. So the use of new and generic top-level domain names will ensure that new businesses have new options. They can, brands, businesses and government, they're able to refresh and modernize their online images or brands or campaigns as well. So that's important. In terms of business opportunity, there was a study conducted by the Universal Acceptance Steering Group in 2017 by a consultancy firm that it estimated the business opportunity for the universal acceptance, either in terms of businesses working on translation, multilingual content, and all that, to be of a value of $9 billion US dollars. So that's a global market. So for billions of people who are using, they will be using the internet in their own languages. So there's a clear business opportunity for companies working on translation, software tools, and ensuring that people are able to access the internet in their own languages. Currently, we have about 4.5 billion active internet users, but the next, with at least, 1 billion expected to come online by 2023, and those billion internet users, the new internet users, will not be English speaking. They will be coming from regions, from the developing regions of the world, and speaking different languages than English. So that's also an important aspect of the importance of multilingual internet. In terms of career opportunity and advantage, developers and system administrators who are able to convert their systems or develop their current systems, or develop codes that support domain names in different languages or email addresses in different languages, they will have a greater chance to find, new roles that fit that need. So they will be able to work in developing the new system that supports to be supporting internet users and coming online. So we are seeing new companies actually working on the area of multilingual domain names and email addresses, specifically email addresses systems, ensuring that, or at least the current email addresses are supporting the multilingual internet, and then non-Latin scripts addresses. For governments, governments use the internet to communicate with their citizens, to provide services online to their citizens, and I think COVID has had a positive impact in terms of the digital transformation of the governments and how an e-government services, and it pushed really governments to use the internet to reach out to citizens and to communicate with them. So it's important really for governments to promote and accept and use multilingual domain names and email addresses to reach out to their citizens and provide them services in their own languages and scripts. In the coming slides, I will provide a background and explanation about the domain name systems and how it did expand to the current set we have now in terms of structure. So the first new generic top-level domain names, or GTLDs, including the longer TLDs like engineering, photography, .cities, and all those, and the new internationalized domain names, they were introduced actually almost in after 2019, before 2009. Apology, before 2009. So before 2009, we used to have two categories of top-level domains. One is called the generic top-level domains, or GTLDs. They were about 22 in total. The well-knowns .com, .edu, .org, and .net, and .asia, .bobby, .travel, .info. So those were the legacy top-level domains that were established earlier. And then we have the country code top-level domains, which is basically the two characters representation of countries and geographic regions around the world. And both were in ASCII and both were in Latin characters. So from 2009 upwards, the country code top-level domain managers, they worked before that in development of policies within ICANN to introduce the new internationalized domain names under the CSTLD, let's say, area or category of domain names. So basically, those are non-Latin scripts, but representing countries. So for the first launch IDN CSTLDs were the IDN CSTLD of Egypt in Arabic, .masr, and also the IDN CSTLD of Russia in Cyrillic. So they were the first introduced new IDN CSTLDs, and after that, many countries applied to get their own CSTLDs in their own scripts, and including India, for example, they have about I think 22 scripts. We have China as well. They have their own domain name, and different countries in the Middle East applied and got their top-level domain names in their own scripts. So that was in the CSTLD area. ICANN and the internet community worked together to develop policies for the introduction of generic top-level domains, which is basically those are new top-level domains. Rather than the old generic top-level domains. And from 2013 and upward, those top-level domains have been introduced to the internet root. And currently we have about over 1,200 top-level domain names that's operational, from generic names related to industries like .bank, .club, .car, .globe, cities online like .london, .cape town, .joburg, .rio, .vote, .sky, .engineering, .photography, and many, many others. And we also have ID and GTLDs. So basically also there's new top-level domains that's not associated by countries, or CCLDs. They could be like .shabaka in Arabic, which is like equivalent to .net, or .site in Japanese, or online or email in different languages. So there's, and also you have cities as well, like Abu Dhabi and in Arabic language. So basically there's now lots of options in terms of domain name that's currently available online. So in terms of universal acceptance, there's two main categories that's very, very important to us. One is the domain names themselves. We wanted to make sure that domain names in different languages or IDNs are accepted. So for example, this domain name here in Thai, and we wanted to make sure that systems and softwares on the internet accept this domain name as a valid domain name. We have also the new short level ASCII domain names, like .sky, for example. Also, it's important for them to be accepted. And the longer top level domain names as well, ASCII domain names, need to be accepted. I can give you an example of the lack of acceptance of those ASCII domain names. For example, a software developer hard code an email validation in their system. That means they validate the entered email in a form, for example, in a web form, and they enter a validation based on the number of characters, for example, and they limit that to maybe 3 characters. So now we have domain names that's longer than 3 characters. So that domain name, it will not be considered as valid when it's processed using that form, for example, where you enter it as your website. So those, or sometimes they list the top-level domain, the legacy ones. And the same applies to the email addresses. Now we have email addresses in newer top-level domain, either a long top-level domain or short top-level domain, like for example, .istanbul. So if you did write this email address in online forms, if it didn't accept it, that means there is a universal acceptance issue. And we have email addresses now that could be ASCII at IDN, so ASCII characters at non-ASCII characters. So that means mark at society.org, let's say, for example, that's in French. If the internet systems and software don't accept that as a valid email, there's a problem for the user. And we have now Unicode or IDN at Unicode at ASCII as well. It could be the username part of the email address could be in different languages, could be in Chinese, it could be in Cyrillic, it could be in Arabic, but the domain name part is in ASCII. And so that email address as well could be considered as invalid. And we have the whole email address could be also in a different language, could be in Cyrillic, for example, for Russian domain name, email addresses. A last example here, this is an example of an Arabic domain name, an Arabic email address, where it's in an Arabic script is written from right to left. So we could have emails, forms reject this email address as invalid, although it's a valid top-level domain, it's a valid email as well associated with that domain name. So this is the 2 categories that technically affected by systems and tools, and wanted to make sure that domain names and email addresses are treated equally online. So this is what we mean by treated equally. We want all systems and tools to accept and validate, to accept multilingual domain names email addresses in different characters and scripts, accept them in web forms, validate them in terms of checking they're valid or not based on the character set type, for example, or the length of the domain name or email addresses. Need to process them. That means need to use them for either login or whatever processing that happens on systems, and it need to store them either in databases and retrieve them as well from databases and display them correctly to the user. So we want browsers to display correctly the new domain names, either they're multilingual or short or long, and we want also email tools to display and correctly messages, for example, from an email account that have an address in Arabic or Cyrillic or Chinese. So example here, if your browser, if you use your browser to go to a bank or any services website, and you entered your, let's say, Chinese or Japanese email address and is considered to be valid, that's a universal acceptance problem related to the email address, which is email address internationalization. Also, if you try to go to your Thai domain name or Arabic domain name or Cyrillic and you're not able to visit it because the browsers have issues recognizing that domain name. So that's another example of a problem, technical problem as well. So, and even it could be a new generic top-level domain, but it's either it's a new one that's not recognized. We're now seeing a development where browsers accept and display domain names correctly, so there's no issues. I mean, it's very rare to find an issue in browsers now, but we are seeing new issues in terms of different systems on the internet, especially when using email addresses that's using different scripts. In terms of who resolve the issues, it's basically the developer that's responsible for that system, the company that's responsible for that tool or platform. We need to encourage them to update their systems, ensure that validation is accepting new and multilingual domain names and email addresses. It's a big task because there's thousands, if not millions, of tools and softwares available on the internet, but there are few systems and platforms that touch everyone's daily life, either social media, those are widely used platforms and tools. And we want to make sure that those platforms and tools really does not, let's say, prevent users from using domain names and email addresses in different languages, or even in ASCII, Latin, but in different, either short or long or neo GTLDs. So what is being universal acceptance ready means, or what is universal acceptance readiness? Universal acceptance readiness basically means that websites, applications, services, they are able to, as I said, accept, validate, display domain names and email addresses, all domain names and email addresses, so they can provide a better user experience. So basically, the same examples we mentioned in the last slides, but this time the website or the emails or the service accept your, let's say, multilingual email addresses or your different domain name, and it's validated and it's stored and displayed correctly. That's what we mean by a universal acceptance ready website or application or tool. So if, for example, if you are visiting a website in Hindi or Thai, and you're not able to submit an email address in those languages in forms online, and it's not validated, that system or that tool is not UA ready. Yes, there is definitely could be a cost for updating systems to be universal acceptance ready, but it's those costs could be minimum, and it's marginal cost. It's not that huge cost compared to the cost of developing the whole system. And if you compare, let's say, so for example, it could be extra hours of coding, ensuring just the validation is done right on the systems, but it's also in terms of, if you compare that cost to the benefits from using or enabling your a website or platform users to utilize or use their own language, that definitely the cost will be very minimum to the benefits. So a major platform want to attract Indian users using Hindi scripts or other scripts in India to use their platform. One, it will translate that website interface to that language. Two, it needs to ensure that website or tool is universal acceptance ready, so it enables users whom using multilingual domain names and email addresses in that language to access it. Yes, there might be a cost, there might be a learning required for developers or system admins to enable their systems to become universal acceptance ready, but it's definitely worth it. It's a better user experience. We have a major issue in terms of the acceptance of email addresses globally, and the Universal Acceptance Steering Group has been conducting an annual study of the acceptance of email addresses in, I think it's the top global websites, so from different countries that they were selected. And basically, we did find over the years that ASCII legacy short TLDs, so email addresses that's ending with .com, for example, domain names that have, let's say, almost 100% of acceptance globally. But if you are using a Chinese or Arabic email address, that currently have about less than 20, between 11% and 10% acceptance. So basically, there is lots of websites and tools that currently does not support Arabic email addresses and Chinese email addresses, or email addresses in different languages in general. So that's a huge difference between almost 100% and 11% of acceptance, and that's a major issue definitely for internet users who are accessing and using the internet in those languages. The email or mail technology stack is complex because there is different email components that's required for email messages to be transported and displayed in different systems and tools. The main email system components are the mail user agent, which is basically that's a software or tool a user will use to compose new messages, read and display received messages from others. That's an email user agent. So that could be your Microsoft Outlook or Mozilla Thunderbird or different mail agents tools. There's also the mail submission agent and the mail transfer agent, and those are systems and in place to transport and send and submit email addresses and during the the generator of email address from the user to the recipient, or from a sender to a recipient. There's also the meal delivery agent, or MDA. So basically, there's also a component that's required for delivery of mail. And we have mail services provider. That could be a platform that's responsible for sending and receiving emails, like webmail platforms like Gmail. And there's also multilingual email service providers like Cormail, which is a company in China that provides email services in Chinese for millions of internet users. Yandex is a well-known Russian company that provides services, different services to the internet users in Russia using Cyrillic. It's like the Google of Russia, for example. And there is lots of components and systems that support the mail delivery and submission, like Courier and DevCode and Postfix, those are systems used by servers and email service providers. So that's ecosystem, or that's technology stack, is complex, and we need every component in the email delivery chain to support universal acceptance or multilingual email addresses for anyone to be able to send and receive email addresses in different languages. The Universal Acceptance Steering Group have produced a report about the testing results, and that's an annual mail testing exercise that's done every year to just check which systems and services that support what we call email address internationalization level 1, which is basically the ability to send and receive email addresses from send an email addresses and receive email addresses to email address in different languages. So my email system, if I'm a user, if I'm able to receive a message from an email account that's in Arabic, and I'm able to send a message to an email account in Arabic, that means my system is AI level 1. But if my service provider is enable me to create a new email account or host a new email service in a different language, that's considered to be level 2, which is not all email systems now support that. But we can see a fairly good support of level 1, which is basically the ability of different email systems to enable users to send and receive emails with email accounts from different languages. For example, Outlook does allow that. Roundcube is a web-based email system. And there's others as well here in Gmail has also allowed that, and you can see this report if you go to if you Google it, UASG 030, and it provides a breakdown of the support on different email tools and systems. Why the universal acceptance is a tough technical issue, because it's not just email tools and browsers. There's different layers of the technology stack that's required to be universal acceptance ready for everyone in the world, really, to enjoy a truly multilingual access experience to the internet. That's include applications and websites, like famous websites as well, to be available in different languages and different domain names. It will involve as well applications like word processing, PowerPoint, and others as well, social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Skype, and others. The ability to write a domain name in different language and to be accepted and validated and link and to provide links through those tools is important. Programming languages as well and their support is important. Platforms and operating systems, either mobile phones, iOS and Android and others as well, and systems related to and system tools. I mean, Active Directory and SSL certificate and all that's also important. Recently, we have seen a good progress and development in terms of acceptance and those tools and operating systems. For example, Apple in its recent iOS 14 version, their email client, Mail, which is called Mail, is now currently accepting sending and receiving email addresses to and from multilingual email accounts. So you can send and receive email addresses to and from, let's say, Arabic, Chinese, Cyrillic email accounts now in iOS. There's lots of standards and bodies who are working to ensure that there's protocols, those protocols support the multilingual domain names and email addresses, whether that's in IETF or W3C or Unicode Consortium and others as well. This is just a quick figures and snapshot from a recent report that was published called the University Acceptance Readiness of 2020. And as I indicated, almost about less than 10% of all email servers, they are potentially, I mean, they accept email address in different languages and scripts. That's a very small number really compared to the 98% or almost 100% acceptance to ASCII Latin characters. So we have a major issue to resolve there. I will go quickly through the technical aspects of domain names and EAIs, and I will explain what is the internationalized domain names and what is the email address internationalization or EAI, or is Unicode. So starting with Unicode, in topography, the cliff is the one small element or symbol that is put together with different symbols that represent a readable character in systems and software. And that cliffs are encoded into something called code points. And a code point is basically a numerical representation of that character. So usually those code points are written in and shown in hexadecimal in hex using the U plus X whatever characters or codes there. And code points are typically represented in a Unicode standard called UTF-8. That's the latest one, and it have a different, let's say, number of bytes per single code point. The American standard code for information interchange, what we call ASCII, is one of the famous character encoding. So UTF-8, that's also a different standard encoding that include different characters from different scripts. So for example, to represent, this is here, this example in French, the French letter or the French small e with a grave or accent. It have two code points, one with the sign, the grave accent. The other one is basically the E and the sign, and the combination of the two codes points represent. So there's two forms to write that. One is one code point for the letter and the accent, and there's a combination of two characters to come up with a single new character. Systems and softwares use a Unicode standard for normalizing those forms. So this combination of two characters to display one character, and those called normalization, and there's two forms of that normalization. It's called normalization form D, NFD, and normalization form C. Luckily, software and applications used to, now they're doing that behind the scene, so we don't have to worry about that. So someone could type, if their keyboard allows them, could type the A accent directly as one character, or combine two characters to get that accent. But it depends really on the keyboard as well. So that's in terms of characters and keyboards and code points. And luckily now we don't, as a users, we don't have to worry about that. I think we just need to make sure that our input mechanism, keyboards, they do support multilingual characters. So internationalized domains, basically domain names in different languages, and basically technically when you write, let's say, an Arabic or Hindi or Cyrillic domain name, that domain name is translated to a a different version. It's called there's this process called IDN conversion. So basically converting a domain name in different language to a Unicode representation of that domain name, and that conversion starts with XN --. So technically within tools, let's say an Arabic and Chinese or Cyrillic domain name will be converted to that IDN conversion, sometimes called Unicode, and it starts with XN ---- as prefix. That's why sometimes when you type a domain name in different languages, your browser displays that in the form of XN ---- characters .xn --. So that means the browser does not support the display of the IDN domain name in its original form, but it displays the conversion of that form, or the equivalent of that in ASCII. So this is an example of how the IDN domain names are processed. The user enters the domain name to the browser. It could be, for example, as I said, an Arabic domain name, or a domain name that have, let's say, a different character, like here the example, the A, or the Cyrillic A. And the browser does not the normalization, check if there's two characters need to be displayed as one. The browser converts the domain name to ASCII compatible representation called the Unicode, based on an RFC or internet standards. For example, and this conversion is based on RFC 3492 and adds XN ---- in front of it. So, for example, the Arabic domain name موقع.مثال, like a site.example, becomes XN ---- characters.xn --. So that's the technical representation of that domain name, that IDN domain name in the software level, I can say. Then the browsers query the DNS for IP address for that XN --, and when it's connect and display the content there. If your browser supports IDNs, it will display the native multilingual domain name. If it doesn't support it, it will display the Unicode, which is basically the representation of that domain name in ASCII. And that conversion happens on the software level. There's two protocols that supports internationalized domain names. It's called IDN for applications, or IDNA. There's a version of 2003, and there's a version of 2008. The later version is actually IDN 2008. It's currently used and have support for loss of characters. So that's a software standard that need to be used. So what about email addresses? Email address internationalization, or AAI. So basically, AAI is the ability to use email addresses in the different languages. And technically, the main issues facing us that email headers or email systems must have headers that support EAI, basically in the ability to write different characters like Unicode UTF-8 and the email address headers, and this email software needs to support that. SMTP UTF-8 as a protocol, it supports the different characters at email level, and systems need to be supporting SMTP UTF-8 enabled to in order for a user to send and receive messages with email addresses from different languages or AI email accounts. Unfortunately, not all email servers support AI, and this is creating a problem because the email could be returned back to you with a failure notice that it wasn't delivered because the email system at the, let's say, delivery side or recipient side does not support email headers in different character sets other than ASCII, for example. Okay, the universal, how you can engage and support this work and push the acceptance of all email addresses and domain names. There is a community group within ICANN called the Universal Acceptance Steering Group, or UASG. It's a community-led initiative formed in 2015. It's basically it have representative from the multi-stakeholder representative from different companies, from academia, from internet users, from linguists who are really passionate about this topic and would like to develop standards or best practices and do research about this issue. Also promote the acceptance of different character sets and email addresses, and they have different working groups. You can visit the website usg.tech. This is their website to find more details about them and the work that they are doing. The working group is, or the USGs have different working groups. There are about 6 technology working group, which is over look at how to fix the problems with standards, software tools, and how to reach out to developers to fix the problem. Email address internationalization working group, that's a group that oversees setting best practices for using email in different languages, email accounts in different languages, and also it engaged with email service providers. The measurement working groups as well, it identified UA readiness gaps, what type of technology to be studied, where there's gaps as well. The communication working group is developing communication messages and outreach to support the promoting universal acceptance. Local initiatives working group, those are local initiatives at the national level or regional level. For example, we have now local initiative in China, in Thailand, in Russia, and in India, and it's a multi-stakeholder group that's work together to support the universal acceptance in that country or region. UA ambassadors are interested volunteers who are engaged in reaching out and capacity building. So as I said, we have local initiatives now currently in the Commonwealth of Independent States and Eastern Europe. That include Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Latvia, Russian Federation, Serbia, and Ukraine. And we have India. Hello? Can you hear me now? As seems my audio was lost.
Yes, we can hear you, Mohammed.
All right, I'll get back to the same slide. Sorry for that internet interruption. So I was saying that there is local initiatives and regional initiatives. Currently, we have the local initiative in the Commonwealth of Independent States and Eastern Europe, and those are basically 7 countries: Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Latvia, Russian Federation, Serbia, and Ukraine. And they coordinate together to promote the use of Cyrillic scripts in email addresses and domain names. We have a local initiative in India, China, and Thailand as well, working with service providers to fix any problems related to the use of their scripts and languages on the domain name and email systems. Ambassadors are active participants, volunteers who are supporting and promoting the universal acceptance in their own regions through engagements, through as well local initiatives and promoting UA readiness. UA readiness, I mean, you can visit the website. You can see the UA readiness report 2020. It have a very good summary about the issues and the statistics about the readiness of different technology platforms as well. And there's a good number of documentation and documents available in that website. I encourage you to read the Introduction to Universal Acceptance. It's a document with the title, with the number, sorry, UASG 007. It provides an overview about universal acceptance. There's also a quick guide to tendering contractual document. We are encouraging governments to include universal acceptance readiness as part of their software and hardware, mainly software tools, systems, procurement procedures as a requirement for system admins or anyone interested in the email address internationalization or EAI. There's also a document that looks at different systems, tools, and support for EAI. And we have the evaluation of the support of EAI in the global websites. That's the report USG 025 and the report USG 327 for 2020. There's also the Universal Acceptance Readiness Framework, which is the technical document provide guidance about how to make sure their system is universal acceptance ready. And there's also the acceptance of email addresses in different in country-based websites as well. If you go to usg.tech, you find lots of information about resources about universal acceptance. Interestingly, and also I want you to look at the case studies. I mean, there's very good examples of how governments and tech sector have used different languages and scripts. For example, there's a case study you'll see in the website for the use of for the government of state of Rajasthan. They came up with a new project that's called Raj Mail, which is basically they did provide all the citizens of Rajasthan with free email addresses, either in Hindi or English, and they use those email addresses to communicate with their citizens. That's a project at the state government level. There's also in Thailand the Thai Network Information Center Foundation. They did develop an email address internationalization initiative where they allowed people to test email addresses in the Thai language, so they can use Thai email accounts. And ICANN is working to ensure that its systems are supporting universal acceptance, and there's a case study about that as well. And we have a train the trainer program where we do technical training for universal acceptance, and those are 3 levels of training. One is technical overview, high level, and there's a specific training for mail system administrators, how to set up and configure their mail systems to support AI. There's also a training program for developers. Currently, it's in Java, and we're looking to extend that to Python as well. And how to get involved. As I said, you can visit the website, UASG.tech. There's lots of announcement there. You can join the mailing list as well through the website. You can join the working groups. No barrier there. Join the mailing list of the working group, attend the calls, get interested, engage, and actively contribute to the work. Also follow the UASG social media channels, and we use the hashtag Internet for All. And if you have a problem in terms of you identified an application or system that's not support UA or AI, you can report the problem through the website, and we have the global support team from ICANN could reach out to the organization that's made that system or website to check the problem and try to help them. And you can also check if your email service is supporting AI or email addresses in different languages by going to the same website, UASG.tech/AI-check, which basically you enter your email address and it checks if the email system or support SMTP UTF-8. And if you wanted to get engaged and establish a universal acceptance initiative, you can email us at uaprogram@icann.org. We're happy to support. And I think that's the last slide. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating and attending. I hope that was useful, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Go ahead, Fredo.
Yeah. So thank you, Glenn. Mohammed, I do have a question. This initiative or this situation seems to be a bottoms-up situation where the end user has to seek out if his or her service provider and or registry or registrar has has done the due diligence to allow for the EAI or the internationalized domain names. Am I correct?
The end user could definitely help resolve the problem. If, let's say, if your ISP is not supporting or have email system that doesn't support AI, if you contact them and requested that, and if they made the changes, which could be minimum changes, that's really great. Yes, so the end user could pressure service providers and admins and system admins really to make changes. We are as well, and others in the community, trying to reach out to the technical community, developers, software companies, and encourage them to ensure their systems are accepting multilingual domain names and email addresses. But it's not just the end user. ICANN as well have the program there to support the acceptance of and push the promotion of multilingual content. Sorry, not content. I mean AI and domain names. But we would like, really, if you are able to help, that would be great, because the problem is big. There's many applications and systems that doesn't support multilingual domain names and email addresses. And there is no quick solution, unfortunately, for this. It's really it requires to talk to those software companies and those developers to make the changes.
Okay, thank you. Glenn, over to you.
Yeah, I'm looking at the excellent comments. Bill has made a number of comments, and I have to agree with him. There's a long way to go in order to, but we're addressing it. Any reason why you would think why this has taken so long? It's a fundamental human right to have the internet accessible in your own language. Do you have any explanation why this has been such a slow process?
I think it's part of it due to I mean, developers are not aware; they're not linguist experts. So when they usually start coding, and they tend to do that with the knowledge to the script that they know. Legacy-wise, English was a dominant language. So there's a legacy reasons about that. Diversity, I guess, is important. Linguistic diversity and any diversity and within the tech industry, that will help as well, because people from different backgrounds, they will understand different languages and scripts, and they will be able to help develop systems that's really taking consideration people using those languages. I think now, as more software and platforms go global in nature, and they have users in all around the world, companies definitely now pay attention to the user experience in those global markets, even from a business perspective, ensuring that they have a good customer experience to generate revenue as well. Unfortunately, yes, it was slow because maybe there is no financial incentive. It was slow process because also the people are working on the systems and tools have few knowledge or very limited knowledge about the diverse linguistic, the different language scripts used by internet users. So it have a legacy, historical reasons. But definitely we need to change that. We need to make sure that the playing field is the same level equally for everyone, and to enable to access the internet and have a user experience similar to others in the using different languages and scripts.
Okay. I think that's all the time we have. We've run a little bit later. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for the insights you've given. I've just put the email contact in the chat as well. This has been quite insightful. As I stated earlier, the video recording will be made available in a short while on the site, but it'll be later in the day. It will be on our playlist. So again, folks, this has been a great opportunity to get insights in UA. And any final comments, Mohammed?
Thank you very much, really, for the opportunity, and I hope that you can get engaged in this work and support us to have more acceptance of different languages and scripts on the internet. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Alfredo?
you. Thank you, Mohammed, for the presentation and the information you provided. With that, we end this session. Thank you.